Howdy, partner. You know what this nation needs to do is we need to move west. I think that's how we're gonna grow this nation is we need to get up and move to the west. You know what? I know some people who moved west. There was this guy, his name was Daniel Boone. You ever heard of this guy? Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone, y'all, he made something called this wilderness road. He wanted to go west. And so what he did is he took a group of people, started cutting through the forest, making a big road, and they call this road the Wilderness Road. He's so crazy. He actually went all the way through Kentucky. Once he got through Kentucky, they actually started a little town after him called Boonesboro. This man, he was going to try to go out into the west. This Boonesboro town was in Kentucky. Yeah, it was in Kentucky. But it wasn't called Kentucky yet because no one lived there. But once Boonesboro was there, people started to come and started to fill into the west. They called Daniel Boone the pioneer of pioneers. A pioneer is kind of like a person who goes out and does something for the first time. And that's what Daniel Boone did. He went to the west for the first time. So, in the west, they had this place called the Northwest Territory. Now, the Northwest Territory was something we won in the War for Independence, but nobody lived there because it was too far away from the 13 colonies. So once Daniel Boone put the Wilderness Road and it went through all this area, Kansas, and it went through Ohio, and Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and a little part of Minnesota. That was the Northwest Territory. They started to make some laws there because they wanted everybody to get all crazy, out there all by themselves. So they went out to the Northwest Territory and they had to make some laws and some order. And so they weren't laws and order like they were back in the 13 colonies because they weren't a state. They were just a territory. Okay, so the Northwest Territories, they had some things happen there. One of them was called the Land Ordinance of 1785. Now, this land ordinance, what it says was that they were going to divide up the land, the territory, into what are called townships. Now, a township was a 6 by 6 mile, 6 miles by 6 miles. And what would be inside the 6 miles by 6 miles would be then divided by 36 smaller section. So they took 6 miles by 6 miles and then they cut it into 36 pieces. Okay. Then what they would say is that those pieces could be sold to people who moved out into the territory for, get this, you ready for this? This is craziness. No more than $1. $1 an acre. Can you believe this? $1 an acre. You get a whole land for $1 an acre. Some of you people I know live on an acre of land. Could you imagine that? For a whole $1. That's it. Anyways, this ordinance said, though, that one of these little pockets had to be made for a school, a public school. Now, after a couple years of making this land ordinance of 1785, what happened is that Congress finally decided that the rules that applied back in the first 13 colonies, which are now 13 states, also applied to the people in this new territory. So they were going to get the same exact rules. Now, a couple other things happened in this land ordinance. One of them was that public schools were made a thing that everybody had to have. So if you had an area, you have to put a school in it. That still today is happening. If you have an area, you have to have a public school in it. Another thing that they made was how many people have to be somewhere for it to become a state. Well, what happened was they made the number 60,000. When 60,000 people got into one of these little areas, they said you can become a state. So every time there were 60,000 people in an area, they would then start a new state. Now, To come over into the West, it wasn't easy, let me tell you. You had to ride in what was called a covered wagon, and you couldn't bring everything you had with you. You had to bring only the essentials, okay? Only the essentials. When you got where you were going, you'd have to build everything or make it. So, these people got in these little wagons. These wagons were only about 10 feet by maybe 5 feet. Very small. Maybe you got a measuring tape and you can measure that out. But they were small. They had to put everything in there, and sometimes they had to bring home their grandma. She got sitting there too. That's a lot of stuff in a wagon. Then they would hike along. Not everybody got a ride in the wagon. You had to walk alongside. Then if you got to a river or a really big stream, you had to get on a boat. Yeah, you'd have to take all your stuff off the wagon and put it on what was called a flatboat. Now on this flatboat, you'd have to put on all your stuff. You'd have to get off your family. You'd have to get off all your food supplies. You'd have to get off your chickens and your piglets and your horses and your goats and whatever else you brought with you off of the wagon and put it on the boat and roll across the river. Then get to the other side and reload it onto another wagon so that you could transport it to wherever you were going to be living. Whew! I don't think I could have done it. That's a lot of work to move west. Now, once you got out west, wherever you were going to be living, in whatever part of this territory, you had to get out of your wagon and you had to start building stuff. You didn't bring anything with you. There's no house already made for you. You can't call the guy and be like, hey, make sure my house is ready, I'm coming. You had to do it yourself. You didn't have any furniture. You barely had any clothes on your back, whatever you could put in the small little wagon. What do you got to do? You got to work. So, once you get there, you got to build your house, got to build your furniture, got to make sure you got a food supply, got to start making some clothes because you know kids are going to start growing out of them clothes. So, lots of things to do. I don't think I'd made a good pioneer. I think it would be a lot of work. Whew! I'm tired of just talking about it.